Okay, so we're going to start now. We don't have a quorum, but that's okay. Everyone, I hope, got the minutes. If you have any questions or comments about the minutes, we can still talk about them and update them, but otherwise we can vote on them next time. As long as they're all good, they can stay exactly like this.
I would say motion to approve, but we don't have a quorum.
Right, so it's fine, we just don't, it's okay. But otherwise, they're fine, and I included our rankings that we've discussed for everything, because that's what I submitted to David, of course.
Right.
Unlike, I guess, a couple committees.
Give me a gold star.
Exactly. And otherwise, everything I think is on here. So we'll just leave that aside next time. Chair's report is that we just had a meeting last night, so there's not as many people here now. We had, we'll do that in under new business. Nothing. I have nothing too crazy. There was no update on anything. I mean, the updates are coming. So, moving along. First thing, let's move to item 4, which is 306 West 232nd. Karen.
Well, unfortunately, 306 West 232nd Street, we tried to put in an appeal of the DEP's commissioner's decision to give a permit to them to dewater the construction site. And we were turned down by the Board of Standards and Appeals because they said they don't do the DEP, which is ridiculous because now the DEP is really part of Buildings Department in terms of stormwater, and certainly the dewatering would have been something there. And there does not seem to be any way to appeal a bad decision by the Department of Environmental Protection or any other department that's not in the charter as a requisite responsibility of the Board of Standards and Appeals. So we tried very hard to do a pretty good job, but we just didn't have, we couldn't get any further. I like to thank all the people that worked on it, particularly Kellyanne and Dawn. The only good thing is we have everything together in one piece now as a total document. And so if something else comes up, you know, we don't have to go through that in a rush. I don't know if anybody else, I mean, the project is going forward. The dewatering permit is only for 2 months. So I don't know what's going to happen when they finish with their 2-month permit. DP is probably going to give another one to them. And it's just a sad situation because there's a lot of water there. There's a lot of problems with the construction site, and they're taking up the whole space, and that's totally ridiculous. So I don't know. That's
do they have to? Is it just a renewal, or do they have to reapply if they want another dewatering if they still need that in 2 months?
It cost them $10,000 for this one, so I think they have to redo it. They have to go in and put a new one in. The problem with this permit is it comes out of the consumer affairs, you know, where you pay your bills for the DEP. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we had a lot of trouble with it. And they also didn't allow, that wasn't the only thing the DEP didn't do right. They didn't allow a stormwater pollution prevention plan because they say that the site is 1 inch or 2 inches, 2 square inches.
I think just 1 square foot.
1 square foot away from the 5,000 square foot requirement, which is not really true because there's 2 lots that they're using, so it's very confusing. There's no question that if you're a developer, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, no, and DEP can do whatever they want, and charter schools can do whatever they want, apparently.
Right.
Is what we've learned. They both slip through the current everything.
Right.
So,
it's
yeah,
just
that's-
it's just gonna get worse with that, City of Yes stuff, which we'll talk about later, but it's just, a sad situation. Well, that's, you're right.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's because it's a charter school. If it was a real school, they would have had to do it anyway.
that's right.
DOE is required to do the stormwater prevention plans, and they weren't, because they're a charter school, and they slipped through by pretending it was 499, or 4,999 square feet for the lot, so
Right.
it doesn't need it. It's not
Right.
immediately required to need it, and then they applied to not need it and got it.
What is dewatering?
So it allows them to actively pump water off out of the site when it like fills up with water. And then they pump it and they dump it into like the neighboring lot that they also own. That is sort of part of the same site, but since they're technically two different addresses, they equally ignored that when counting the square footage for determining whether to do the
Right.
stormwater prevention plan.
And where does the water come from that they're trying to dispose of?
Tibbetts Brook.
Is there an
They're basically over what used to be Tibbetts Brook, and they're digging down. It's like over in Kingsbridge, you know the areas where like the houses used to be, are like below the street grade?
Right.
Like you kind of, there's like a bridge to like their second floor, and the
Yes.
first floor is like down here. It
Right.
was one of those, but they tore it down, so now they just have a wet lot that they're trying to build on, and pretending like this is a good idea, and like they don't need to do anything about it.
There's some community people from the area also on Barbara Fasciani.
If anyone is around there and wants to make a comment about this, on the record now, raise your hand. Otherwise, I mean, I think Karen summed it up and did a great job, and I commend her for the letter and all the research and all the appeals that unfortunately were on deaf ears, but at least were otherwise reasoned.
It is Kellyanne.
Let's see, spotlight and you can, Kellyanne?
Yes, hi. I just want to say thank you so much to Karen for her dedication and hard work, as well as all the community board members and residents that have been part of this fight. I just want to raise that the surrounding neighborhood is still being affected by this with cracking, further damage to the parking lot, and just navigating it. So it's not the end of the fight, but we are still feeling the repercussions of these actions.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So yeah, so I don't know what, can be done from here other than, I guess, maybe talking to DEP about if and when they have to renew it, sort of changing their decision at that point if they feel like it, but, they don't seem to have to.
I obviously don't know the background in this. If there's no administrative appeal possible, which is what I'm hearing,
In Article 78?
then you go right, but that's risky. You spend money and then somebody figures out a reason that you haven't exhausted remedies, but that would be, it would maybe strike some fear, maybe not. The Corp Council would probably represent DEP and it wouldn't be so scary, but that's what happens when you don't have, normally there's some appeal mechanism, even in a town.
They had a lot of damage. There's a co-op, the water is just cascading.
Well, it's about an official making an unlawful or arbitrary and capricious decision.
Mhm.
And here it would be a DEP official, but it would be nice to get somebody to, it would be nice to get someone to put in writing that there is no administrative appeal from the decision on this permit.
I know.
Karen, did you hear that?
I think we have we only have a response from the Board of Standards and Appeals that they will not take this because it's not in the charter. I mean, we have that in writing in an email. Both me and Kellyanne have that. We just tried everything we could to convince them. They just turned it down like within 10 minutes of getting it emailed to them. And
No,
we
just
went
know that
back
it's the
after
wrong
them.
place. No, I
Right.
mean, that's not.
They didn't tell
not a
us where.
criticism, but-
Right.
Right, well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't know who at the agency would have to respond to that simple question.
Right, like if not you, then who?
And also, like, what decisions, since you guys have been dealing with DEP for a long time, and on a friendly basis where the community board is concerned, generally speaking, Can we just somehow get them to just give us the information about where one would appeal any official action by DEP?
Oh, so
I mean,
we have
maybe-
that too. Mario sent us a note and first he said there is no appeal. And I said, no, that's ridiculous. There has to be an appeal. And then he told us to read the handbook on community boards. And the only place that they mentioned appeal was in the Board of Standards and Appeals.
Which sounds like the right place.
It's got the word appeals in it.
I wonder if Borough President's Office Council, I mean, I know they're not that energetic, but
Well, the councilman and the assemblyman is on the complaint that we filed, the appeal. But I mean, we're willing to do whatever you think, anybody thinks. I don't know how much time we have.
Right, we could reach out to them kind of as a follow-up, like referring to it, ask what they think about, what they think we could do.
I mean, I don't know who's most interested, the council.
Point us in the right direction.
Assemblyman, but it would
It
be,
would be Dinowitz, right?
I mean, they generally, they're able to find things out because people pay more attention to an elected official asking that question. I don't know if there's a general counsel's office inside DEP, but something like that. Again, it's more, in some ways, it's more effort to file a case in court, but depends how many people are behind, the opposition and.
Right.
We've been
I
working on this.
would say that we should work on making sure that that gets put into the whole system. And have them do an ordinance or whatever they need to do at the city council so that there is an appeal process. Because this project's not over and there's many more projects to come. And the same thing is gonna happen.
So did you forward that email to the office, Karen? Were they telling you that this is not,
No, but
the
we will-
DEP's not included?
No, but we will. Kellyanne and I will put that together, including the memo from, the note from, Mario about how there is no appeal.
Okay, thank you, because exactly, if the plan after this is to make it so they are first, that at least is something.
Right, but also
Well.
if the elected officials can just confirm that which is surprising, that there's no appeal of the issue of the action to issue this permit. And the thing about it is that, there's a deadline for bringing this kind of a lawsuit, but you're telling me that it's gonna happen again. Because they're gonna have to get rid of more water, they're gonna have to get another permit, and then you have 30 days to bring that suit, I think.
Well, and if
Okay,
they
you're
had
right, that's good.
done the whole stormwater prevention plan, if they had maybe had been forced to do this in a way that made more sense, because what they're doing now, according to the neighbors, is not working either.
What about the corporation council's role in any of this?
Well, I mean, they are,
In fact, bring trucks in too, apparently. They pump water into a huge tanker truck and just I don't know where it goes. They take it away too. There isn't even, because they know it's too much water.
Wow.
Seemingly, according to neighbors, this is one of the things was that they would see the tanker truck and then that next morning would be when DEP comes to inspect.
We had a resolution about this.
Mm-hmm.
In this committee or land use?
No, to the full board. You weren't on the committee yet, but Bob Fanuzzi, in the fall, we've been very active. Farah has done a lot of calling and.
Yes,
group
we have the
went down to
resolution from the
COB.
board. We had that, we put that in.
Yeah.
Yes. Where we were saying all the issues that we were having and that this was.
I remember there was a lot of opposition to squeezing the school in here. It didn't seem like it made sense.
Right. So that, we had that the board did, but it's just very frustrating.
Kellyanne has her
Leanne, you raised
hand
your
up.
hand?
Thank you. I just want to also add in terms of the water, we have their site plans that show that their elevator shaft is going below the water table. So Tibbetts Brook is about 9 feet below ground level. Their elevator shaft goes below 10 feet below the ground, meaning their elevator shaft is literally in the water table. We try to present that to the DEP. We try to present that to DOB. DOB said they were informed and that they approved it regardless.
There was an article recently in the Daily News that DOB is letting go inspectors which is the
Right.
absolute opposite of what needs to be happening in the city. Budget things. I have to find that article.
Okay. So now, if that is all the sad news on that,
Paul has his hand up.
okay, Carl? Here.
I just, this issue with the, the Tibbets and the water, and somebody said the word water table. I believe it's not water table, it's actually a covered up river, and it starts at Van Cortlandt Park and empties into the Harlem River. And that's why those houses are depressed like that, but I believe it's not a water table. They punctured the drainage system from the weir at the Van Cortlandt Park Lakes is what's happening. So the water will never go away. That's something,
I'm not aware about the weir, okay.
that's the Tibbets Creek was overcovered 100 years ago, and it flows down along Tibbets Avenue. That's the ergo the name, and it starts in Van Cortlandt Park. It's all in the
Mhm.
it's all documented.
Yeah, there's maps. It meanders, but it's squiggled all around over there, that whole area.
Yeah, and the DEP knows better. You know what I'm saying? They know better.
The school is gonna sink the way Co-op City sank into the
Right.
swamp.
You know, it's as of right.
All right, so we'll send that stuff to the office, and maybe we could all get together and ask the elected officials to figure out how to appeal this. I mean, I don't,
Exactly. Or in the future, how could one challenge
it.
anything
Yeah.
like this?
Good luck with
Right.
that.
right.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so next is Van Cortlandt Village thing. Because we don't actually know what the thing is part of the problem here. Is I fully understand the concern, and we're gonna do a presentation now. I think you're sharing already. But the biggest problem with this is that there isn't a plan yet. So we don't know what they're planning. And, and if it was a S-shaped thing that weaves around every tree, we'd be like, okay, actually, we have no problems. But in absence of a plan, and in absence of them telling us anything, I hear the neighborhood has fears.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
I mean, well said. My name is Abel Leffler. I grew up in the area, and after college and grad school, returned to Van Cortlandt Village. So it's a neighborhood that I care a lot about, and it's near and dear to my heart and that of many others. And really, what I'm trying to do tonight is to just raise awareness. You're correct, Daniel. As you said, there is no plan yet, but there has been a lot of discussion amongst the people who live in Van Cortlandt Village about what the implications of this development might be for the area. So what I've really tried to do in this presentation is just lay out specifically what are the concerns folks have articulated and bring them to the committee now to see if there is anything that can be done or should be done before development gets underway. And if not, to just raise awareness that this is something that we think is an important part of our neighborhood and something that we care a lot about and are really concerned. I also wanted to say I am not somebody well-versed in this area. I'm a scientist by profession. I'm not an engineer or a developer or a real estate lawyer, so I'm coming to you really as a citizen who is a spokesperson for others in the neighborhood, really. So I just wanted to start by sharing this video that one of my neighbors took, and I think it encapsulates why this piece of property, 3862 Sedgwick, is something that matters to a lot of us.
Oh.
Just wait.
You know it's coming.
It's amazing.
Isn't that? Yeah, so Gene, in our building is an amateur or not so amateur ornithologist and gets up, I'll play it once more. Let me turn up the sound a little bit. Gets up early and takes these amazing videos. Flock of grackles in this case.
Oh,
And this is her early morning footage of this flock of grackles alighting from this more than 80-year-old hickory tree on the property at 3862 Sedgwick. So if you're not familiar with 3862 Sedgwick, this is what it looks like from right now from the street and above view. Let me just get the pointer real quick.
Right, there's a single-family house there now.
Correct.
And the house has been sold? Is that it?
Next slide, it's coming, yeah.
Okay.
Let me get the laser pointing. So as you can see, it's a verdant property from any angle. Beautiful, very green.
5 feet, and I think that's because it's the 5 pounds. Usually it's
I don't think
7.
that's relevant, is it?
Fire.
Okay. Now, yes, Laura, you cut to the chase. The property has recently been sold. And this is information that was posted online to the effect that 3862 Sedgwick was sold to a company called Innovative Development. This was on Instagram, I believe, and these are the two brokers who represented both sides, both the buyer, the owner of the property and the buyer. So the sellers were Clem and Donna, the buyers were Innovative Development, and the property sold for about $2 million in October.
How big was the lot, the 3862?
So they,
Two different lots.
so they have here 8,610 square feet. But again, as I said, I come to you very much as a civilian, so
Right.
please double check or cross-check whatever numbers I give you.
Yeah, I think that's,
I mean, that sounds like two lots. That's about two lots that are slightly, it's like a hexagon. It's like not a perfect rectangle.
It's a considerable property.
yeah. It's,
But it's R6A.
it's a sin. That is the crux.
Cutting to the chase, yeah. So you can see why it's attractive for a developer, because of the zoning and the size. So the developer, Innovative, has done other work in the neighborhood. This is another property that they developed at 390 Moshloop Parkway South. And past is not always prologue, but sometimes past can be predictive. And I would wager or guess that this may be the kind of development that they have in mind for this property as well. Or at least it's the only evidence that we have of other development that they've done in the area upon which to speculate what the development here might look like. So the question is, if a development of that nature were erected at 3862 Sedgwick, who would be affected by this? And this is really where I say I'm a spokesperson for different people in the community, because different people in the community care about different things. And I've listened to a lot of those feelings over the past couple of months. And broadly speaking, they fall into 4 categories: trees, birds, people, infrastructure. And very quickly now, I'll go through how each of those different populations or entities could potentially be affected by redevelopment of this property. Starting with the trees, it is really an urban forest. This property is more than just, it's not a lawn, not that there's anything wrong with the lawn, but this is a property that has essentially been allowed to develop or mature over the course of at least 80 years. And a very preliminary survey of the trees on this property show that, in effect, succession has taken place here. And that is indicated by both the diversity with respect to species and also age of the trees on this property. There are white pines. There's a mature white pine, at least 2 fully mature hickory trees that are probably more than 80 years old and at least 60 feet tall. There's a mature maple, Norway maple, 3 cherry trees. See people joining. 8 elms, a dogwood, magnolia, and a mulberry. There are also native vines like Virginia creeper and other plants like elderberry, rose of Sharon, marsh marigold, spring beauties, which some of you may recognize are really truly native plants that you really will find in a forest environment typically. To give an indication also of how this forest has developed over time, there's this really incredible website that Carl actually unearthed that shows pictures of what different properties in New York looked like when the photographs were taken in 1940. And you can actually trace some of the trees to those historical photographs. For example, this oak tree on the street here is probably this oak that you see in this picture, which I found really neat. And the same goes for this hickory here, this very mature hickory that the grackles were alighting from is probably this younger hickory over here. So it's really remarkable to have that historical reference. Now, the second population that would be affected are birds. This is something that many feel very passionate about in this neighborhood. The Bronx and all of New York is part of a larger Atlantic flyway, so migratory birds fly up and down this corridor. And because Van Cortlandt Village is so close to the Jerome Park Reservoir and to Van Cortlandt Park, we get a lot of these migratory birds. And it's beautiful to hear them sing in the morning. And this property and others in the neighborhood are critical for nesting and a stopping point for these birds. And this is a nice picture, courtesy of Jean, showing a family of ravens that are, I would argue, citizens of Van Cortlandt Village. They've been there a long time, they seem happy, and they nest and live in these trees. Jean has also compiled a very exhaustive list of the different species she has seen in observed on 3862 Sedgwick and the vicinity. In particular, I want to draw your attention to the yellow warbler. It's one of the few warblers who rest in New York City, and in this case, this is the nest she observed in Van Cortlandt Park, but it's the only nest that she has seen, and it's in this area as well. So clearly, this is land that is well trodden by many different species of birds, and if they did not have this home, they would be the less for it. For those who care about people the most, they will also be affected. And this plot here from it's from one of the New York City agencies, shows that it's an index of heat vulnerability. So a lighter color is better and redder color is worse. Kingsbridge Heights, Van Cortlandt Village is right here, and it's a marginal neighborhood, and it scores 3, so not the best, not the worst. But it's, I would say, at risk, and if you compare it to nearby Riverdale, which gets a perfect score of 1, it's at a significantly more disadvantaged, vulnerable position, so to speak. It's not that hard to understand why. A lot of the heat vulnerability is associated with the amount of concrete in an area. And this is a nice graphic here showing that urban trees are a powerful force for lowering temperature in an area. In this case, 8-degree reductions in temperature just due to the presence of trees. On the right here is just showing that you can probably associate the better, lower heat vulnerability index of Riverdale with its very verdant tree coverage in comparison to Van Cortlandt Village that has much less tree cover, which would only decrease if all the trees on this property were removed. Finally, the last point I wanted to bring up is the nature of the infrastructure. I guess that got touched on a little bit in the previous session as well, but we all know that this is an area that floods. And this is a really compelling image from the Riverdale Press showing the Deegan underwater. And when we continue to cut down and replace natural vegetation with impervious surfaces, this effect becomes magnified because of increased storm runoff, reduced groundwater and aquifer recharge, and that leads to more flooding at higher levels. As I said, we've seen them in the Deegan, but that process is also underway in Van Cortlandt Village.
What is the before and after illustration?
Yes, that's a great question. So this is a property down the block on Sedgwick Avenue by the BX3 Express bus stop. And this is a house that, similar to 3862 Sedgwick, had a large property around it, not as many mature trees, and it was sold to a developer and replaced with this building. So this is the same lot, this house replaced with this building.
It's a little zoomed in on the left side, because you had to zoom out to see the building.
Yeah.
Because you see that house, it's just distorted, that little one on the right.
Historic house, I think, yeah.
No, I mean the one, the dark one.
yes.
You
So this-
see it in the right picture, it's just much smaller.
Is this house here, and this house here is this house here, which is now sandwiched between these two buildings. So to kind of wrap up, this process is intensified and picked up speed in Van Cortlandt Village lately. And essentially every property that is newly developed has no pervious space to it. These are 3 examples, courtesy of Carl, who took the time to go around the neighborhood and take these pictures. And they show 3 examples on Saxon Avenue, I believe this is Cameron Place, and also further along Sedgwick, where there was pervious space before, it has essentially been paved over.
What does pervious space mean?
Pervious is water can
Infiltrate.
penetrate into it. Yeah,
Impervious is meant, is.
so this
It just flows downhill.
correct. Yeah. And why might that be a concern? I mean, aside from the issues with the Deegan, this property, 3862 Sedgwick, is in very close proximity, within 500 feet of the Jerome Park Reservoir. And there has been talk around, for example, an extensive DEP effort to run pipes up and down this street here. And one of the concerns we have is if you do, in effect, pave over all of this property, you remove all the pervious space, how will that affect the stormwater runoff? We can imagine there will be significant increase in stormwater runoff. How will that affect not just the drainage in the neighborhood, but potentially the Jerome Park Reservoir as well? That's what I have to share with you tonight, and I felt, based on what I was hearing from my many neighbors, it was important to bring this to the attention of the committee and see what your reaction was to it, and if there are any next steps that can or should be taken at this point.
So for tonight, we asked the developer to come, but they had another meeting at 6:30. They could not make it. I would think that, right, trying to get them the table to talk to us, to talk to community members, even before that, just to almost be able to sort of get feedback and tailor, there aren't plans yet, maybe work some of this feedback into their plans of like, the trees in this area are really important, like, could you figure out a building that doesn't require cutting all of the trees down? Instead of just making a giant rectangle, maybe make something nicer for the area, for where it is, to like build up the area instead of, right, just sort of literally like what a kid builds, like a Lego building. It's like, I'm done.
Did they buy the 2 Stevenson Place lots? Is that what 69 and 71 is?
Right.
Yeah, and
No, so 69 Stevenson here has been acquired by a different developer. So this is 3862 Sedgwick. This is 69 Stevenson Place. It was acquired by a different developer.
And where's 71?
71, I'm not 100% sure. This may be 71 Stevenson Place here. We should double check.
then there was equally,
That's the front on Sedgwick.
Correct, it goes.
and then those ones to the right of Sedgwick bring you to the Jewish Center,
Correct.
which is right under like the W there, sort of, or like right there.
This is the Van Cortlandt Jewish Center.
And so the plan was sort of, in maybe possibly ending up combining all of these lots, including that one, and building next to, onto, over even the Van Cortlandt Jewish Center.
One,
Buying that building and renting it back to them.
right, they came to land use.
Right. And they came to land use to discuss that, but again, it's acting like there is no plan yet. But if the plan includes, right, like 5 or 4 lots, it's a much different picture than if they're just building something on the footprint of the single-family house that's taller, which sometimes happens too.
There will be an update of the Van Cortlandt Jewish Center membership meeting this Sunday, at which I believe one of the agenda items is a discussion, an update from chairman and the president about what the status of those discussions is right now.
Who are they discussing with, do you know? Which,
I don't know. I don't want to speculate. What I had heard was it's the same developer, Innovative Development. I don't have any information beyond what's been said
What
publicly.
they said at land use, were you at that meeting? Representatives from the Jewish Center said that they would be basically, like you said, renting.
Yeah, they want to sell the building to rent and then rent it back.
They can't afford to keep up this building, and their congregation is shrinking. And our understanding was that it was not going to be demolished.
Right. Then just the developer would buy it and renovate it for their own different uses, including renting a portion of it still to the Jewish Center. But again, we don't know yet. So Karen, I see your hand.
Yeah, I
First,
mean, there is no reason to expect that they're going to do anything until the city of Yes for housing opportunities gets approved. Because then they will be able to not put parking in, and they will be able to accommodate the religious facility, which is what the mayor talked about when he came to visit Riverdale. I think your presentation is wonderful. There is also no question that there is a tremendous problem with runoff in existence now. I mean, all you have to do is walk on Sedgwick Avenue and you can see that there's a terrible destruction from water coming down the path that everybody walks on down to, get to the bus stop. And so, it's very, sad that we have come to this, but, we need to make sure that we get a comment put in about the city of Yes and the proposal that the mayor is putting forth at this time. And it would be great if you and your neighbors would be helping to support the issue that we don't need to have a zoning change at this point, that there's enough buildings going up in the neighborhood right now, and that we've had enough and we don't need any more. And if they wanted to change something, those properties are way up above the street level, so they have a lot of rock that they would be drilling down, and the neighborhood is like filled with rock, and we've gone through this many times where they've spent months, years drilling down to build whatever they want. They need to be told, stop, we don't want it, it's not necessary. And I don't know what you can do about the temple. It's just a sad situation that's going on over there. But it's exasperated by the city of Yes. They would not even begin to come across it without having the knowledge that the mayor has their back to do whatever they want. Just like that project, I mean, it is a school, special school, and so they got away with using the whole lot. But if they can, they will use the whole lot. And no one's going to stop them. Just like I said, we couldn't stop the DEP. There's nobody to stop. There's nothing that you can do.
One comment on that, though, is the city of Yes for environmental sustainability, whatever the first part was, which totally passed, will require them to be building better buildings than they've even done in the past, and have stormwater retention tanks equal to the entire lot for like the amount of water that the whole lot would bring on. They need to be able to retain a certain amount for a certain amount of time so that they're not adding that directly in. Like all new buildings actually have a negative water footprint. Like even though they appear non-permeable, the new standard will be that they're offsetting that. They're collecting it on their, off the gutters and not just running it directly into the sewer.
But that's the
It
law
first
now.
goes into
That,
these
Daniel,
huge
that's the
underground
law.
tanks that slowly drain once like it stops raining, and then right now, it flushes out the rest.
It's been a law.
And putting in the big tree boxes and the setbacks and the, like, there's like, some of the building stuff will get a little better, hopefully, as well.
I hope so, but that has been the law, that you're supposed to control your storm water. For how many years, Karen? Like 100 years? You know,
No,
I
they
mean,
just passed the new
it's on the
law.
books.
It's the stormwater pollution prevention plan that we wanted them to do at 232nd Street that they will not do. And so, and
Right,
in
that
fact,
was
in
passed in 2020,
22, yeah, something like that,
Yes,
right?
the new rule. So a lot of this stuff, it's on the books and it is rules,
Right.
and it's just, sign-offs are just, I don't know.
Being
It's just-
ignored.
Well, yeah, I have to tell you, but hope springs eternal. I wanted to follow up on what Karen was saying. They're gonna wait until City of Yes passes, because for the developer, having to not have to put any, off-street parking is huge. That is an enormous expense, and that's what the.
Because I think depends on their target, though, as they've said, because like, this is an area that
No, it's
is
citywide.
impossible, no, right, but it doesn't mean that they can't do parking, like, if they have a big enough, if they're doing something
They're not
big.
prohibiting it, but right now, it's mandated, it's required.
Well, for certain size buildings.
For anything,
Yeah.
even if you own a single-family home, you're supposed to have a driveway.
Yeah, but so in this area, it's also in this area, what's happening, if I may interrupt, these single.
Carl, I saw your hand, sorry, continue.
These single family homes, and this is another subject, because you guys kind of drifted, I had some other things to talk about. But these single family homes, like across the street, number 69 Stevenson Place, was bought by a developer. It was a single family home, and it is being converted to 10 units with no required parking. They're micro units, and because they're within a certain proximity to, I guess, the bus station and the 4 train, that they're not required to provide parking. Now, that's not to say that whoever moves into these places won't have a car. So in my mind, I'm adding 10 cars to my neighborhood, which we're all already deprived of parking. But that's, that's what I wanted to say. But I had my hand up because what the grand scheme for 3862 Pacific Avenue is to combine the temple, to combine the house at 71 Stevenson Place, and the library and the single family home into one giant building here, okay? And what's standing in their way is Abba, help me with the address. There's a 2-family house there. That's standing in the middle of them, and they've intimidated him. They've tried to coerce him to buy his property, and this is what's happening here. And that whole area is all on bedrock. So, as far as impervious, the water goes into the ground and recharges the aquifer. It goes in naturally when it rains in an open forest. The water percolates into the ground, and that's what's going to be deprived, and that's what we have here right now. And Tibbetts Brook is going to flood even worse if they keep paving over these areas. So, to answer those questions, that what is pervious versus impervious? The natural course of activity for rainwater is to, like you're brewing coffee. It goes through the grinds and into the ground and into the aquifer. Okay, and that's what that natural process is, and we're taking that away one by one by one by one in this neighborhood. Not to mention the green space, and I just want to remind everybody, this whole neighborhood, the Van Cortlandt Village and the reservoir area, over 120 years ago, was platted and designed by what's his name?
Olmsted.
Frederick Law Olmsted, okay? Right. And these trees, and he was a landscape architect and an urban planner, and did Central Park. And these trees were perfectly placed. They didn't just roll marble out and say, put a tree, put a tree, put a tree. They were planned and done throughout this entire neighborhood. And the way the streets wind down to Bailey Avenue, it's all planned out. This is no accident. This neighborhood is no accident. And these single-family homes and these double townhouses are no accident. And what's happening is they blanketed this zoning ordinance that applies to maybe the Grand Concourse and, 57th Street and 8th Avenue and overlaid it into Van Cortlandt Village. And it doesn't apply. And I think what this board should do is there should be a moratorium, and this area should be segregated from these zoning regulations. And if somebody says to me of right R6, they're going to get a punch in the nose because it doesn't apply to this neighborhood. These little homes over here are not
Heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's,
Chuck has been talking.
it's not a blanket, somebody make a blanket decision. And I think that, I'm going to stop in a second, but the point is that I think a lot of people are just, wringing their hands. Oh, this is going to happen. All this stuff. And we're really just going through these motions here. Okay. And, it boggles my mind that this board, that I've been to several of these boards, and it's the same thing. They wring their hands and there's nothing, it's the developer, I'm ready to move out of the neighborhood. I am. I'm done.
when you have as of right, it means that the developer will get that permit from the Department of Buildings because he's building something that is allowed by the zoning. Yeah,
In this case.
okay. And if it's not as of right, and they're coming to you and they want a variance to build bigger, then the community board
Has leverage.
They don't come to us, they don't have to come to us. Often land use gets them in, and there are some, compromises, but the three scariest words to me are as of right, because there is no leverage, and it's absolutely heartbreaking.
I mean, except in situations where the elected officials feel like it's a special case, and then they pass,
A law like they did at the Montesquieu.
unconstitutional
Yes, right,
legislation.
but it's so rare.
Right.
And if they have to come to us because they want to build something more dense, different, increase the floor area ratio, then it goes to Board of Standards and Appeals, or, we have some leverage, and the elected officials have more leverage. And often there's a tremendous compromise on that building. And it's you're preaching to the choir here. It's one of the biggest issues about losing ULURP. I'm going to say this expression I heard, don't usurp ULURP. That's the land use review process where things go to the community board. And they go, we vote, and then it goes to the borough president, and it goes to city planning, and then finally the city council. And along the way, there's changes and compromises and places to demonstrate, and write and petition and testify. That's what we have now under ULURP, but we don't have enough. There's so much as of right. So
Given the externalities that project will likely produce, even if constructed as of right, I think the question is, are there any processes that, or reviews or anything of that effect that
they have to be approved by DEP, by, for their water system, which we see what this is like, They have to.
They have to go through the regular process, but it's not applying, it's not asking, they just sort of apply for the correct permits, and if they pay for it, they'll get them.
There's no bird division, of the buildings department, or, so the externalities that you referred to are their values that people hold, but zoning is supposed to incorporate all of that, traditionally, right? Light, space.
So as a hypothetical then, suppose, as of right, something's constructed and the neighborhood floods every time it rains. What happens then?
They say they are not responsible. They're gonna sign off on these.
Because they got all the permits, they did everything they were supposed to.
This is a very vicious.
I see you, Karen, hold on one second.
Okay.
very, very vicious cycle that,
I think Karen has an answer for you too.
Well, I'm not sure it's like a whole answer, but there is a theory, we are, like, let's remember what room we're in now. We're in the Environment and Sanitation Committee. So there is a theory about biodiversity and how important it is. And not only is it important for our health, but it's one of the reasons the lack of biodiversity is causing us to have more germs and being sick with other kinds of illnesses. And there are biodiversity cities all over the world. One place that there is no biodiversity city is New York City. So there's a group of people that I'm involved with that are trying to do that for New York City. And I think that, I'd like to show them your presentation so that they could see that, like, there's some bird people in there and there's that kind of stuff, but I don't think that they have looked at it in terms of this whole concept, like as a one circle. And so we could take a position that this is something that's important for our health and for the health of the nature that's around us and the trees and everything else, and that it needs to be protected and guarded. And we could take that kind of a thing, because that's the kind of committee we are. We're not really the buildings committee or the land use committee. That, those kinds of things we get involved in, but it's not our expertise. And then I will tell you that I don't know why they don't have to have a parking. That the issue of the transit zones, which is now why they're going to limit the amount of parking, that was put in the last zoning text change, and for ZQA and MIH, and we didn't even know that they were putting that in, because there was so much other stuff there to read that we couldn't even grasp the concept of this transit zone stuff. But I divert from my whole idea that we should we should embrace the issue of making the area the target, like you said, a model for biodiversity in the city, the first step. And so I think that's a great idea. And I think I would propose that we support that in some way. And I'll find out how we do that.
Well,
Thank
Carl.
you, Karen. Perfect. Exactly.
My last 2 cents is I don't know.
Okay.
How do we isolate our area and get a moratorium on this till we figure out how to handle this? Because
Right.
one by one, these properties are falling, and it's just.
Yes, right.
How do we get a moratorium on building permits and limitations of stuff? Because what's happening out my window at 69 Stevenson is unacceptable. That's something that takes place in I don't know what other country. It's not. This is it's not New York City. It's if you saw what they're doing there, it's an abomination of housing. Okay, and I'm an architect. That is an abomination of housing. And I'm curious as to what people, and my understanding, and Abba, you know more about this than I do, that this developer, and he's done this all over this neighborhood, is in contract with city and state agencies to place people of deprivation or whatever into these units, and the city pays their way. So they're more halfway houses or things like that are being plopped in this neighborhood. So, and I don't know. I think they're the 500 square foot apartments is what they've jammed into this place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
What's this place?
Orloff Avenue, Bailey Avenue, right over here, back on Giles, there's another one. It's insane. I mean, how?
Those are nothing. Carl, those are nothing. We're gonna get 150 square feet apartments. That's what's coming with the city of Yes.
Well, that's why we need to have a moratorium and put a perimeter around Van Cortlandt Village and say the residents here want everything to stop, and we want to have a say in any future development, and put a moratorium on any building permits that are issued. And how do we do that? I mean, it's not rocket science.
The entire neighborhood declared like historic or something, and that would freeze like new developments.
Well, how do
That's like
isolated zoning changes occur? They're rare, right? Like a zoning change to a neighborhood.
zoning boundary, like, look, this is, they
Neighborhood
changed,
changing its character.
197A, and we did it, but we couldn't get enough areas downzoned. And that was, 2003-ish, yeah, and.
197A.
197A, where, the community board, we managed to downzone certain areas, and then city planning said they okayed some, and then they nixed others.
Part of this
And
area
Webb
was down
Avenue-
zone as part of that. Part of this area was
Right,
down
but
zone.
certain areas, Webb Avenue and this area was not. And, we worked very hard, and now we're trying to defend those areas that we downzone, because they're also in a transit area under City of Yes, and now it's like the 197A is out the window, because you're gonna be in a transit zone, so developers are going to be able to develop apartment buildings in R1, 2, 3, where they never would even look. In other words, they always looked at R6s, because it was not worth their while to go below. But this is changing the whole paradigm. And I just want to say that this committee, is concerned with the impacts of increased construction on the water infiltration and impacts on increasing impervious surfaces and erosion and flooding. And this committee is concerned about increased density and the lack of infrastructure, especially sewer and water lines and things like that, to handle increased density. We already have areas in Community Board 8 where during rain events, where sewage it goes into people's homes. This is antiquated, but we're worried about impacts on combined sewer overflow, and in general, the building envelopes are going to be expanded exponentially. There'll be a reduction in open space because your side yards, your front yards, your rear yards, all the requirements that we have right now will be eliminated. And so this committee from the fall, has been very concerned about construction. However, the city, the mayor, and city planning says, tisk, tisk, there'll be no impact. There's still a little bit of building and everything. You won't even know. It's not going to affect anything. It's just a public relations jingle, a little bit of housing and everything. It's not true. Under fair market and open market, we're not in control of what developers, it's very complex where developers choose to develop. Targeted, but they're making it so that it is more attractive and doable, even getting rid of something called the sliver law, so that very impossible, difficult places that couldn't be built before, you couldn't get a permit, you will be able to build on now in high density and lower density. A lot of under ZQA, the last big zoning thing, it affected R6 through 10, and it didn't come down to the R1 through 5. City of Yes is all about R1 through 5 and making that the same target. So that's why we call it City of Cement.
No, I'm sorry, I believe Chuck calls it City of Yesterday.
That's right, because things that we had many, many years ago that they did away with, like SROs and all, they're going back to.
And the, single rooms
Right, he called it City of Yesterday, yesterday. We call it City of Cement. Jeff Dinwood calls it City of Mess. I've heard a lot. But the reason is that they're going to allow, if you have a single-family home like this, whether you're in an R6, and there's plenty of them, or an R1, 2, you can build an accessory dwelling in your backyard that can take up 50% of your yard. And that, of course, that's going to remove trees and grass, and,
I wonder how often that's going to happen. It seems in a lot of cities.
People can convert the, like, space above their garage.
Campuses of
Well,
NYCHA, that's different.
There too.
I know.
Okay, how many homeowners will do this? It's impossible to tell. I asked some questions. I said, how do they hook up to the sewer and water lines of the city? They couldn't answer it. They haven't really worked any,
I mean, you have to pay to excavate all the way to the street,
Oh, it's gonna be
probably,
very expensive.
I'm sure.
But the point is, they think this is wonderful, because they're not caring about the trees and the lawns and, you know, whatever.
How come the Department of City Planning, with all the smart, forward-thinking people, they don't seem to champion these
Not anymore.
issues?
They used to be a planner. I mean, they used to have that kind of vision. It's gone now. But aside from the.
I think it's nice that I heard, Dinowitz last night kind of say how they're taking in what we've said about economic development and making it so a lot of the new things still require a rubber stamp then and have to go through the community board and city council. So it's like,
They're trying to.
we're hoping, and wouldn't that be nice if instead of it just being like, we're gonna put these into the zoning code, it's like, we'll allow it if you get the okay. And even for all these things, if it was, if you get the okay, I feel like we'd be in a much better place than it just being, right, allowed
It's
or,
always the fight.
right.
It's always the fight.
Then in appropriate places, you'd be like, sure, and then if it doesn't fit here, you'd be able to push back against it at all,
No.
instead of it being, well, this is now zoned for it.
Another very big thing is, Main Street, what they want to do on economic strips. They want to be able to build 3-4 stories on top of stores. It's called, what is that called?
Mixed
The
use.
town center,
No,
but
it's
that,
the
let's not get,
Town center.
let's not get
Yeah.
into this topic because we're, you
No,
know, we're
it's
talking.
two sentences.
Right. This is not old business, this is new business.
Yeah.
Any old business first. We'll do old business first. I
Well,
don't think there
I
is,
think that we should encourage
other than these
the
two
community to continue the fight and keep us informed. And if we find out anything, we will, help you, and you should talk to the elected officials.
The other thing that, we're having a very important meeting on, what's the date?
23rd.
The 23rd. Land use. Well, it's on City of Yes. Department of City Planning is coming to make a presentation.
To the special committee that was formed to look at City of Yes.
And, but, I mean, the whole board is very interested in, everybody, I hope that we have your emails and that we could send everybody on this call and you can notify your neighbors, because it's a public hearing as well. And you'll listen to it, and, you know, it will.
Log in and ask questions.
It's on Zoom as well.
It's gonna be at a school.
Right. It's going to be at Intech Academy.
Carl, I see your hands.
Yeah, somebody said something about elected official. Who here is the elected official? Who's here? Who's the elected?
Your elected official is Eric Dinowitz and Jeff Dinowitz. And
Senator Jackson, I
and
believe.
Senator Jackson, yeah,
Are they here?
And
Well, they
Carmen
don't
De La
come-
Rosa, if you're in Marble Hill.
That's their job. They're supposed to be at these meetings. Why aren't
I
they
think
here?
there's maybe.
no, they don't have to come to the
Um,
committee meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
thank
they
you.
will be at that meeting on the 23rd, so.
Not today, not tonight's meeting. This is on May 23rd is the meeting with the special committee on the City of Yes for housing.
Well, I get
And
that.
DCP is gonna
I
give a
think,
presentation and the elected officials will be,
I want
there.
my elected official at every meeting, at this meeting and everything meeting. They should know. Somebody should be here from the elected official's office. And I want that in the record, that they should be at this meeting. They're derelict of their duty. They're being paid to do this, and they're not here. I'm here volunteering.
Well, so are the rest of us, so
I So I want it entered into the meeting. All elected officials did not show up at this meeting. Please.
No, understood. But everyone will be there at this special committee. And, we have the emails of everybody?
Yes.
Like-
So the elected officials should be at all the board meetings and at these grassroots meetings. And I,
That's announced.
no.
That meeting will be
No,
announced
they're not-
on
they're not
website,
announced.
on Facebook, everything.
Please go to
The meeting.
CBA's website also for the information.
Yeah, the link, everything will be there. And everything always is, ahead of all the meetings, all our agendas, all the minutes, everything's on our website. Always. Thanks to Artie and Farah.
Okay.
But that's all, unless there's other,
Very important meeting for you.
exactly. Any other new business? I know, Sergio was, I think, talked about, graffiti, which is apparently Department of Sanitation. But
I think it's a highway. I think it's state
it's
DOT.
actually now DSNY.
Even the,
Yes.
Even the
Yes,
Deegan Expressway.
yes.
that's surprising.
They apparently have a, like, graffiti removal division, and so it's been, like, relegated to them. And so apparently that is, Farah said that's in the process. That, like, they first had to figure out who was responsible, how would they get, like, because they all have to, but, because I guess Riverdale Crossing wants them to clean it, even, but, or whatever, River Plaza, whatever that's called, rather, is what I meant, sorry. Not Riverdale Crossing, that's different.
So this is a new development.
Yeah, and so that, I guess this is, they know about it, so this is possibly happening. I would want to now talk to DSNY about, in this case, or, there's also all over the, like, the Best Buy. You see it from the train tracks on that plaza, whatever that one's called.
I think
Well,
Is that River Plaza?
isn't that
Riverdale Crossing, is that?
where the Buffalo Wild Wings is it?
No, that's at 238th. I'm saying at like 231st, 230th. The one across from the post office that has Best Buy and Aldi, that one is also completely tagged, like you see from the one train.
You can only see from the train?
Only see if, maybe you could, but from the train today, because my train went to 242nd before turning around and going back to drop me off at 225th, I saw it, and it was like huge, like that whole, and it's on the side facing Broadway.
But that's their private property. You must have a connection with them.
Right, so that's another,
They
but
just-
is it them, or do they, it's not then sanitation?
On private property, not automatically like that, no. You're
Or like they can't get them to come do it, maybe?
Probably not. I would start with, do we have a connection for that, mall?
Right,
And the mall should clean up itself.
right, so that's, I'll ask Artie and, or we'll research it, figure out, right, just kind of talk to them. And right, they could all know, they're like, we're doing it whenever, we need to, you know, get
I
a,
take it this is not good graffiti.
it's nothing.
Great
It's-
artwork.
It's just whatever,
You
yeah.
know, when we had the
If it was
CSX,
nice, if they commissioned like a huge mural or something, you know, that would be cool.
remember the CSX cleanup that this committee?
Well, and some of this stuff was, they were saying around that is over CSX.
Well, CSX cleaned the whole place. When they were doing the cleanup, it took them weeks to take all the garbage out. And at that juncture, I thought that they spoke with state DOT about highway graffiti, and that, and you say that's changed now.
Right. I guess they've shifted responsibility to
Right.
sanitation.
They, it was all over the stores and whatnot. CSX might have had some deal going with the
Right.
stores, but that's not relevant now, because.
Right. But apparently they're working on that, so that is,
So, I used to have a contact because, I have to look, it might not be the same. Sarah might be able to get.
all right, so we'll look into that, okay.
KRBC might be able to have it too. In other words, the lady.
Amelia? Just raised her hand.
Yeah, no, just to provide some information, on the
Hi,
properties.
Camelia.
Oh, hello, Laura. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I cannot use my camera right now. My name is Camelia Tepelos. I was a CBA member for the past 4 years prior to this one, and the former chair of ENS. But in my private life, I'm the Morris Park Business Improvement District Director. So just to provide with some updated information on graffiti, so on all private properties, actually, DSNY is indeed now a service that could be contacted. All they need to do is to do a 311, and there is an online form where the property owner has to give permission to DSNY to clean up, because as the committee chair stated, sometimes there are murals or things that are intentional, and of course, you know, they don't want DSNY to clean them by accident, sort of say. On the side of formerly CSX corridor, now city property under DP custody. Laura, you may remember last year when we did that walkthrough, they were actually cleaning graffiti as we were passing by. So, but I just drove by 2 days ago from the Deegan side. It's absolutely disgusting. It's the entire, it's for a mile, it's full of graffiti. And this will remain an active concern when the space will be developed and open to the public. This will be an ongoing concern and should be raised continuously with DP, because the space is very prone to graffiti. So just wanted to contribute this. Also, just finally, I mean, on the whole debate on the city of yes, both for right now economic opportunity and future housing, I mean, I hear the committee from the point of view of environmental protection, sort of, you know, concern, but there are a lot of other issues under consideration. The pressure on housing, obviously, and our community board compared to, for example, East Bronx. I just testified today to the City Planning Commission on the Metro North that will open up 4 new stations in the East Bronx, but our community board has been a champion in creating new housing. If this committee, ENS particularly, feels a strong pressure and motivation, I mean, to put a stop to it or to take a negative position, I mean, by all means, draft a resolution and present it and ask our city council members representing us to vote no on this city of yes. But I don't think that this debate is, how to say, properly. I think this is just the beginning of the debate, and there is a lot of elements of nuance, and solely playing the angle of water, pressure on the sewage system and environment only is not enough. But just wanted to contribute this, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Karen?
you.
Go either way, you know, we thought.
Well, I was gonna comment on that, but I guess we're gonna talk about the city of yes later. I would just wait.
Yeah, exactly. That's May 23rd. Save your every
No,
city
no,
of
I
yes
mean
thing.
later on today, we're gonna talk a little bit about the city. You don't want to talk about it now.
Okay, you want to talk about it right now? Let's talk about it.
I
We're
would
in
be
new
glad-
business now.
Okay. Yeah. What I would,
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
I did put together a short little presentation. And
Okay.
but we could talk about it if you don't want. I could just send it to you if you like, to explain what different processes are. What I wanted to talk about is there's going to be this meeting, and in general, the community board always talks about ULURP. And very few times has the community board commented on the environmental impact statement. And so I think on this particular project, it's really critical because you may have heard, and people say that we are in a housing crisis and we have an affordable housing problem. Well, that in the environmental impact statement, they stated in the beginning, and now in the draft environmental impact statement, they state that the big problem is this serious housing crisis and affordable housing. And I have information from the City Planning Commission that proves that there is no housing crisis. There is an affordability crisis, and those are two different things. And their proposal has no affordable housing position or increase except for one of the programs, and that's a completely voluntary program that the developer needs to take up. And so I would like to show you some of those numbers and things, and then you can and describe like what the next part of the process is, and help you to understand. And I don't really know what we want to do about it. Do we want to like just make a recommendation? We want to identify it to the committee? Do we want to I don't want to be like doing a whole big environment. I will probably be commenting myself, And as a, the Bronx Council for Environmental Quality, which we do comment all the time on environmental impact statements, but it's really critical because in an environmental impact statement, you need to figure out if there's going to be an impact on the environment. And in order to do that, you need to know what it is that you're actually doing. The purpose and the need are two very critical parts of it. And right now, and all this is written down, Daniel, so you'll be able to like see what I was talking about.
Okay, I mean, I made you co-host if you wanted to share anything, but
Oh,
otherwise,
okay.
yeah, just send it.
Yeah, and so so those things, the purpose and the need has to be clearly identified, and we need to measure that up against what the impacts are. And right now, they are obfuscating the data, and they're not providing the correct information for the people. Oh, wait, let me just put the thing on. Oh yeah, okay, I can do it here. So I did a quick PowerPoint. Really,
Is it your philosophical position on this that most of City of Yes does not specifically pertain to creation of affordable housing?
absolutely,
And it is
absolutely.
principally just devoted to creation of additional housing
Right,
of different
right.
kinds, like
Yes,
smaller.
that's exactly right.
I mean, I agree, that definitely should, the
And-
word
and-
affordable housing should be the only thing they should be trying to create the most of.
That's right, that's right. And
Because
the
everything else
problem-
they'll create anyway.
Right. And they may not, and they don't need any of this other kind of housing except for affordable housing at the right levels. Like they had the affordable housing, but it was like for 100%. So those are people making $100,000. It was not
Not
helpful.
even 100, it's like 130% AMI. How is that?
Yeah, right.
That's a
right,
whole other,
Right,
yeah.
right.
I mean, you
So,
can't fight every battle at the same time.
Exactly,
Right,
and
so-
that's more of an issue for the housing committee.
Federal issue.
Right, let's focus on environmental
No,
impact
but
statement, which
if
just.
what I'm saying is that they didn't do their environmental impact statement correctly. And that because of that, they are not looking at the major impacts. And because of that, the whole thing should collapse. I believe that there's only one piece that can withstand any realization to creating affordable housing, and that's the thing called the UAP, but that's not even good enough because it's completely voluntary. So anyhow, here's the milestones of what happened, and here's a little bit of stuff about the ULURP system and how it works and what the progress is. So both the community boards and the borough presidents all have the same date, and the borough board, they have to meet get a comment in by July 8th. And then after that, it will go to the City Planning Commission. The City Planning Commission will have another 60 days after the community boards and the borough boards go. And in here, they talk about, this is the bottom part of that chart so here's the zoning text change, which is non-ULURP, from non-ULURP, and it goes into either this, or you can get a triple no, which is if everybody says no, then usually the City Planning Commission could just kill it. And then, so this is all about, the next section is about what we were doing for the City of Yes. It was created by people who are not on the community board, not in no elected officials. It was created by people who are in the agencies for this mayor, and also for developers and bankers and lawyers and, big companies that want to just pave the way down. And then these are some of the other things they did, which took away the power of the ULURP and the power of environmental impact statement. So this is like like a couple of items concerning the City of Yes in terms of housing. About Laura talked about many of them. The accessory dwelling unit, that we spoke about the transit zone. She spoke about the town center, this changing the framework, no parking, and this is the UAP, which is if you decide that you want to put in affordable housing, we're going to give you a 20% increase in your FAR. And then Laura did talk a little bit about
It's a carrot.
Yes.
All it is.
It's voluntary.
But for that, City of Yes is not requiring any of the new building that's made
Right.
more easily accomplished, that's not creating affordable housing, it's not a requirement.
Right, nothing, none of it,
There's
right.
no overall certain percentage of affordable units per building, which would be great, wouldn't that be neat?
Thing, basically.
But
We'll
it's
give a
not in
whole-
this
well,
project, it's not here, this is not in it, so, so this explains about environmental impact, and I put links in so that if you wanted to get more information, you know, we could talk about it offline if you want. And these are some of the problems with the city of Yes, but here's the diagram. So they say that we have a 1.4% vacancy, which is very, very low, and it would, if that were true, it would be critical. That means we have 33,000 empty apartments that are available to be rented. But they forgot to add the 230,000 that are off the market, not being able to be rented because the rent is too high. And when you add those two things together, the 9.8% and the 1.4, you come up with an 11.1 vacancy rate, which is not a vacancy rate, because any vacancy rate that's a problem or emergency is 5% or lower. So there is no housing crisis, but there is an affordability crisis. And so these are my statistics that I just show my work, my math, so everybody knows about it. And so this is the housing database that the City Planning Commission collected for 14 years from 2010 to 2024. And this is what the City of New York does. This is 74,000 new buildings or demolitions. And if you want to know what's going on in the Bronx, here's Board 8. Here it is, Board 8. You got plenty of dots. Ward 7, plenty of dots. Ward 12. I don't know
On
if
the
Ward 12 is
current zoning.
under the current zoning.
Say
now. And
nothing
by the
could be
way,
built now.
my understanding that the current zoning allows a build out of 55 million people, but 55 million people, which that I can't even imagine what that looks like. So here's a graph of completed housing units by year, and it starts at 2010 and it goes to 223. And so it goes up and down. So 2010, you know, we were in a depression, right? And so we were at a one level, and then it sort of went down for a couple of years. It picked up in 2016, and we started with MIH and ZQA, which is the latest zoning text. Now, zoning text is supposed to be doing a 15-year build out, and we have not finished our 15 years. That's one thing. So we had the zoning, we had COVID, and we're still high. We're still at a higher rate than at 2010 when we started. And this breaks it up in different colors for each one of the counties. And this breaks it up in the number of permits that were given out. So you might want to build something, but it looks like it's really hard to get a permit. What does that have to do with us, you know? And here is what this 3.43, almost 3.5% is $2,400 or more, which is, you know, depends on how big the apartment is and how much you need. But these are the reasons why people have those 230 empty apartments. And most of it is because it's held for occasional use. I don't know what that means, but anyhow.
Does that mean Airbnb, basically?
Airbnb is illegal.
Well, right, but held for occasional use.
Right.
No, that's a very odd category. Who keeps that
You're right.
category, Karen?
All of that information is data that's, let me get out of here, is data that's on the City Planning Commission, and I have all the links in there so people can read it. And then I did send you that document, which just kind of explains what I said about, you know, that little chart that I did, which is not to scale, but it's enough to like figure out what's going on. And that basically there's only one thing that I would say would be approved, and that should be the UAP, but even that is not going to help the situation. And so just so you know, in addition, I was at a Community Board 8 meeting last night. I couldn't stay because the air was horrible, and I had to leave. But at that meeting, they were presented with a building that was going to house homeless families and affordable housing, a brand new building that was built on Sedgwick Avenue, 2501. And so now they're taking, it should all be affordable, but they're putting homeless families in there because they have homeless families living in places that are falling apart. the city is just out of control. I mean, so nobody's taking care of people who need, so if you don't take care of the people who need to have a rent that's capable of keeping them in the house, you're gonna end up with more homeless people. And then you're gonna have to figure out where they're gonna go. It's like, somebody's gotta get a grasp on what's happening here. We need to send a big message. This is a no.
I mean, presumably, the idea of trying to goose or supercharge the building of all housing, presumably it's the supply and demand idea, in that if you have a lot more housing, the price, you know, you won't have the squeeze, and it drives the
Right, and
price
people
up.
will buy a new, even if it's a more expensive unit, they're gonna leave their lower priced unit to upgrade to that,
But
freeing up the
when
something
you
they
have
were sitting on that
200
they couldn't afford or didn't have anything to move into.
But that's not possible, because when you have 230 empty apartments, that's more than enough that should have made the difference in the price, and it didn't make a
They're
dent.
privately owned apartments that, you know, there was that correction in the Riverdale Press, to the letter in the last Riverdale Press, not the one that was delivered today.
But that was wrong
Where
also.
someone made, was that your letter? I don't know, but
No, Jane
it
wrote
had
the
the
letter.
same numbers in it.
Yeah, they had same numbers,
Um,
right.
Right, so there was one of these sort of fact check things after it, and it just pointed out that many of the apartments that are vacant are in buildings where landlords say they gotta do work to get them ready. I'm not, you know, a fan of landlords by any means, but it is private property, so it's not as simple as saying, like, it's crazy that they're vacant and the city should just make them, you know, rent them out. I mean, you know, it is private property, it's problematic. I mean,
Well, but
you know,
it
you could
is-
go to the state legislature and get permission to have New York City, you know, seize those apartments, but it's tough.
Or force them to take vouchers and increase funding for those sorts of things.
They used to smack paint on the wall. They don't have to renovate the whole kitchen. You know, there's this expectation now.
Well, you
about
never know,
why they
because-
say.
They want to, because the more they put in, the more they can increase the rent.
Yes,
They
exactly.
do control the.
Say, if they pretend they increase the value of it so much
I'm
more.
just saying, it seems like, from the fact check, that's a lot of the 300,000 that we were just talking about.
Carl, and then I think we're
We're finished.
finishing, yeah.
Also, what you see happening, and like you just said, that building on 25, they contracted with an agency.
Mhm.
Okay, they built this building as an apartment building with some affordable units, and then just like on Broadway across from Stop and Shop, they built an apartment, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to do something different." We've contracted with a state or city agency, not unlike what's happening in this neighborhood, where they don't have to get tenants. The city provides them with tenants, and the city pays the rent. So it's easy street, and it's a scam, because they come in here and they say, we're going to build an apartment building, we're going to have a couple, so, you know, 20% affordable. Then when the CO is done with, they say, you know what? We're going to contract with, you know, the homeless agency, and we're going to divide, you know, we're going to be paid direct and get $2,500 a month automatically, rather than, you know, deal with the public and, you know, try and, you know, fight over getting $1,800. So that, you know, that's the other thing that's happening. The city and the state and these agencies, like on 69 Stevenson and on Orloff, they already contracted with these people. They said, build it and we'll supply you with the tenants.
Right.
And pay you their rent. And the guy did it, what's that? Stag Development did that on across from Stop and Shop.
Right,
That disaster, okay?
yes.
And we're getting another one over by where the paint store is, and the old Mr. Magoo, and that parking, the big huge parking garage that has, like, I think 250 parking spaces, that is gonna go away. And there's a ULURP in there that put a building in, and they're bold and upfront about it. They're saying, we're gonna build this thing, and it's only gonna be for people who can't afford to pay any rent. Period. That's what they're building over there. It's on your own website. I think it's like a 400 unit building.
Absolutely. That's why we have
Okay.
to vote against it, you know?
Well, so that is why come to the May 23rd meeting. That's why we made a special committee to talk about this, and we will all be voting on it in the June 26th meeting, I assume.
Yeah, June
Which is
20th.
the whole idea, because then that's before the comment period ends in July, which is perfect. So we will all be commenting, and then, I don't know, I can't, you have someone else make a motion, right?
We need a motion to adjourn.
I
Is
second.
there any other?
Yeah,
I
second,
second.
Karen seconds, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen, for that great
Thanks, everyone.
presentation. Thank the community
I'll send you the
for-
presentation.